Ever had a moment where you felt something in your gut, but you couldn't tell if it was your intuition guiding you or just your anxiety making you overthink? If you've ever found yourself second guessing whether what you're feeling is your actual intuition or just your anxious thoughts, you are not alone. I get this question all the time, so stick around because in this video, I'm going to share how you can tell the difference between the two. So, how to start trusting your gut with confidence and start walking your true path in life. So, let's dive in. Hi, I'm Lisa, the founder of She Feels Heard, and in case you're new here, I help you to gain clarity, say no without guilt, make courageous decisions, and take empowered action so you can actually live a life that you love. Now, today I am going to walk you through some of the simple ways to tell if what you're experiencing is your gut feeling or anxiety creeping in. And trust me, it's really not easy to tell the difference. Like, a lot of us struggle with this. Many of us, myself included, have confused the two at some point, or just not known altogether. But the strategies that I want to share in that, I'm going to share 3 strategies. You'll be able to distinguish whether, or start to distinguish between anxiety and intuition, so you can make better decisions without second guessing yourself all the time. So stay with me till the end. I'm going to give you those 3 practical tips and you can start using them immediately and start making some more courageous decisions to change your life. So before I do get into that though, I do want to just define the terms because I think understanding what we're actually dealing with is key. So gut feelings, also known as intuition, is a deep knowing that doesn't necessarily come from logic or reasoning. It's kind of an inner voice. It's like it's trying to guide you to make decisions and navigate you towards different choices, helping you in different situations, often without conscious thought. So it can feel like a sudden understanding or a sudden nudge or a strong sense of a certain feeling or emotion and thinking about a particular direction. Your gut feeling is shaped sometimes by your past experience, but more within your values and your knowledge. And it's normally not on a conscious level. It's normally on a subconscious level, right? It's really focused on a pathway. And while it might not be easy to explain and a little bit woo-woo, as our culture sometimes puts it into the box, gut feelings tend to be grounded. They're very strong. They're very calm. They often focus on a set way of thinking, like, oh, it's this. It's very instantaneous in the thought. Doesn't necessarily come after the question. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. It doesn't have to come straight away. It's not your initial reaction, but the actual feeling is instantaneous. Anxiety, on the other hand, is an emotional response, often tied to like fear, worry, overthinking, and it often shapes definitely, from the past events or the unknown, and it projects the physical world, right? It is triggered by the imagined future that it's going to be, and it's racing heart, sweaty palms, tight chest. It hasn't even happened yet. Like, this incident hasn't even happened yet, but it's very real in the moment, and it comes with a lot of panic and a lot of stress. Now that you kind of get those two, the difference, one, is a very calm and grounding space and still comes with a lot of emotions, but the feelings are very anchored, whereas anxiety, very heightened. I like to say kind of like, if you're feeling the sensation above your belly button, it's often head and heart focused, which I know people say lead with your heart. I actually don't. I lead with my spirit, which is for me like going into that root chakra and grounding into the earth and following that pathway. Because at the end of the day, when we talk about what's the right path forward, it's a grounded experience. It's walking that path, right? And then so the gut feeling is normally an intense feeling down below my belly button, very kind of like anchoring, very heavy and very it's very fleeting. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So let's talk about how they might feel similar, and why it is very confusing, because they do both have very intense feelings within the body. Both of them are a feelings experience, and not something we've been taught to do as children. So no wonder we don't know the difference. We never have been taught in our lives to use our intuition, because that's just woo-woo and weird, and and we want you to think the way we think, right? So this is going against the grain a little bit, but it's really powerful if you can tap into it. We often hear the generic advice that your gut instinct is like your first feeling. It's the initial reaction when you face the decision. But the reality is that is not necessarily true, especially if you're not deeply connected to yourself. Sometimes it takes time for that, to know which is the right path. There's lots of options that come alongside that decision, and it's like letting your body filter that through. If you're disconnected from your emotions, you're overwhelmed by stress, you're constantly in fight or flight and survival mode, you're in consumer mode, so striving for success all the time. So you kind of don't hear your gut, because you're like, yes, but I am on the path that I've always envisioned for myself. And your gut's kind of going, yeah, but there's so much more for you this way. And you're like, no, I can see it. I need to follow this. So you kind of push against it, right? And it doesn't really come through clearly or immediately. A good example of this was the time that I had to make a decision about selling my house. And I felt it was a really heavy feeling in my body. Like I said, it was like kind of weighted to the ground, and it was a voice. Don't always get a voice, but in this instance I did. And it was like, this isn't right. And I didn't feel it until the actual sign was being hammered into the ground outside my house. And I just heard that. And I was like, oh, it's, I just dismissed it. It's just anxiety. It's just fear. I mean, on paper, everything looked perfect. Everything looked like it would work out. And I don't know why I kept getting this weird, unexplained feeling every now and again that it just felt wrong, and that I just dismissed it every time because it was everything I wanted. What is it talking about? Now, in hindsight, I truly believe this was my intuition. It felt much different than anxiety. It felt, like I said, below the waistline. And it was a very fleeting thought. It came and then it left, and wasn't something that kind of stuck around and I ruminated on. It was just a fleeting thought. I thought, very strange and very intense thought, feeling in the body, followed by that kind of inner voice, which was just fascinating. At the time I was in survival mode, so I didn't really hear that, as I mentioned, but it ended up being financially one of the most devastating things that I could do for myself, right? Since then, I've been leaning into that feeling more. And that's why I've got these 3 strategies that I'll share soon with you, right? It's really powerful. If you let it be, it is really powerful. Now, I've also definitely had moments where I felt anxious and thought it was my gut trying to warn me, like the time that in my new relationship, after unfortunately my ex-partner had an affair, my ex-husband, I kept saying, oh, I have this gut feeling. When I asked my new partner, I was like, it's a gut feeling. He's just doing the wrong thing by me. He's lying. And luckily he was very calm about it, and he provided the evidence. And I was just like so convinced. I was like, it's my gut. I know it. I know when people are lying now. Like, I see it. And actually, when he did provide the evidence, I felt a little bit crazy at the time. But we can do more about that. Power of self-compassion another day. Let's stay with this topic for now. But I thought it was my gut, because I had the feeling straight away, and it was so strong, and I was sure of it. And that's not always what intuition is. Sometimes you're quite unsure about what this even means, and it's worth exploring rather than it's just telling you what you know. And so when I realized the thought of making that decision was just triggered by like the cascade of what ifs and worst case scenarios in my mind, I realized that it was anxiety and not my gut telling me anything. And again, this is where I started really tapping in. I was like, okay, so now I can hear my gut, but now I can't tell the difference between my gut and anxiety and my triggers. Like, oh my God, like now I'm just even more confused than what I was not hearing my intuition, right? I was like, why did I bother? But this is how I started looking into my intuition and how I could use my gut more to try and guide my life. Since then, the decisions I make and everything that I do, it feels so much more empowered than I used to. And it just seems to align, and it just seems to snowball from there. It just seems to happen and bring forward everything that I require. And I just have this faith in life and in myself that's just so much more powerful than what I had before. And I want to give that to you. And I want to, I want you to be able to feel into that as well and actually be the leader of your own life. Okay. So doing these three things. So number one is definitely paying attention to the physical sensations. So again, anxiety often comes with intense physical symptoms, your heart racing, shallow breathing, tightness in your chest, you feel like you can't breathe, panic. These signs, also ruminating in your mind, like, in your brain, you can get like migraines, you can get headaches, anything like that. You can't sleep, the physical signs as well, like you get insomnia and things. These are signs that your body's in fight or flight mode and you're in anxiety right now. On the other hand, when it's intuition, the feeling is much calmer. Like I said, it's heavier, it's grounded, and it's often in the lower half rather than the upper half of the body. And again, that's not a math. It's not like if it's definitely there, but it's just something that I use. Where am I feeling it in my body? Usually when I do that, I can feel. Like I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling it in my chest. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, I'm feeling it in my back here. It's tense. I'm tense about something, rather than when it comes from your intuition, when it comes from your gut, it's almost like an opening. It's almost like, yeah, I just not really sure. I'm really unknown about this, but I almost don't feel scared. Like I just feel like, oh, what does this even mean? Once you can get curious, obviously at the start when you're confused, it's like, what is this? Oh, that's just, and normally you can brush it off. Like, the physical signs, they don't last all day. They're just a really intense feeling followed by a disperse, and we'll talk about duration in just a second, but your body isn't reacting with panic. It's more like something anchoring you to the ground. And number two is the duration of feeling. So anxiety, it tends to linger. It doesn't really go away, or it gets worse, as you know, if you don't get on top of it. And the worrying thoughts then snowball in your mind. It feels like it's really hard to stop thinking about it. It's really hard to stop getting that feeling out your body. Whereas intuition is often very brief. Like I said, it's a fleeting moment. It comes quickly. And once you acknowledge it, it kind of fades. It's like, oh, the message is gone. Oh, she's got the message. Great. Now she's going to act on it. We need to start doing that. But, it's like a little fleeting moment, message delivered. Thank you very much. I think that's why it's so uncertain, because it's almost so fleeting. You're like, you can miss it, or you're like, what is that? Is that just a random thought in my head, or is that actually my intuition speaking? I'm not 100% sure. What was that feeling? I don't have that very often because we're so in survival mode, right? We don't spend a lot of time in our thriving mode. And so therefore, it's really easy to miss. And honestly, most people do. That's what I do in my coaching, is really help people to tap into that intuition and get to make those courageous choices based on that, just getting rid of all their anxiety around what they do and how they do it. It's all right for you. It's all meant for you. And just trust in here. Now, get out in nature is the third one. I know it's such a simple one, but if you're really, really uncertain and you can't hear, go and clear your mind. One, it greatly reduces anxiety, which is a win. And this is not just like me thinking, nature, everyone preaching. This is like an ancient practice by our Indigenous people here in Australia. These are the true custodians of Australia. They are so wisdomful, so wise, and they have been doing this for generations. Getting out in nature when you feel lost and uncertain and you can't hear, because there is that belief that it's all come, all the answers are there right in front of you, right? So meditate, discuss it with someone, go for a walk with someone, journal, just sit, and whatever works for you. It doesn't matter what technique you do, whatever works for you. Everything that has come up, hear that inner wisdom, hear that pushback, ask yourself questions around it, explore the feeling, explore the emotion, ask for more guidance, ask for more clarity, ask for what feels right. What feels right for me, even when it doesn't logically make sense, and I don't even know how I'm going to make this happen. But something in my gut is telling me that I should say no to this. And I don't know why, but it just is. And that's really hard to follow because there's no evidence and no faith. And I'm not saying it just go and do it blindly. Obviously, make choices on that. That's why I do coaching, to help you make sure that we're definitely making the right choice, because it is a skill. Like I said, you have not been taught this in school. This is a skill that we have never been taught on how to do. So it takes some time, and I wouldn't recommend you just go making rash decisions on your gut. But eventually, once you start working with this, and nature's a great place to practice, is then being able to obviously hear that inner voice and hear that inner gut, which is why I'm called She Feels Heard, because you can hear the inner voice. She knows where you should be going, what direction you should be taking, and she knows exactly how to get there if you're willing to listen. By paying attention to these 3 areas, so physical sensation, duration of the feeling and sensation as well, and sitting out in nature and doing some exploration work, you will be able to hear it. You will start to hear those messages, and then you'll start to see it in your physical world, and you just won't believe it. I got messaged the other day, like, things like this just don't happen to me, and I'm like, they do now. Like, they do now. This is your new reality. The power within you is crazy beyond anything you've ever experienced or explored. So if you let this, it's going to blow your mind. It's literally going to blow your mind. And you'll be able to tell the difference between your anxiety and your intuition. So remember, your intuition is your inner wisdom. It's there to guide you, not create chaos. And if you feel like you're stuck between those 2 emotions, just stepping back, breathing, listening, finding that inner voice, and do less in your day. Say no to things that don't serve you. That way you can actually hear, because when there's a lot of chaos, you can't hear. So if you struggle to say no, or you just have no idea how to do this, I'm going to drop my link to my Say No Without Guilt course and private sessions, so you know that the resources are there to help you if you ever need them. Trust this skill takes time. Okay, be patient with yourself. Know that the more you practice, the easier this comes to recognize, and it is possible for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you did find this video helpful, please make sure to subscribe, drop a comment below with your thoughts. Like, have you ever had confusion between anxiety and intuition? I love to hear your experiences. Give us a comment below, and I will see you next week.